Our amphibious assaults along the eastern coast of Iberia were a massive success. The fire and smoke served as a warning to anyone who dared side with the Romans. It basically said, stand down or suffer the consequences. The Editani only had one settlement left in the far west, isolated from the other towns in Iberia. Taking it would be challenging, especially as the Iceni raided our trade routes with whatever ships they had left. Dealing with them also seemed like an issue, with an army marching north to challenge us. But that was why we sent down reinforcements from Britannia, albeit being a rushed voyage across the channel causing attrition for our men. But by now the Macedonians seemed to be on the verge of capitulation. Actually, Antigonus had already offered us peace so we could focus our armies on Rome itself. But if we agreed to that, our Cretan allies would be the ones to suffer, making our decision quite easy. The Editani, however, still had one card left to play in besieging Numantia, or copper mine in Iberia. But this was a battle we had prepared for by forming barricades and digging spike traps to help in our defense. The Iberian cavalry ran head-on into our barricades, allowing our skirmishers to pick them off with ease, while the infantry corps of the hostiles funneled through the middle of the town into the marketplace, just like we planned. We immediately sprung the trap, sending out our many swordsmen to cut off any escape route and close in. We inevitably encircled the entire army, causing a chain rout. Luckily for them, we were taking captives, enslaving hundreds of men to work in our Mauritanian industrial complex. But unlike the warfronts in Iberia and Thrace, the Massalians on the other hand still posed a threat. They just recaptured Lemonium, officially reverting everything to how it was before our little incursion happened. If we were to make another attempt, we'd require a fleet to cut off their sea access. But with ours mostly destroyed due to complications, this specific frontier had come to a stalemate. Instead, Glaucus actually had plenty to do over in Thrace. After his minor involvement in Dacia, a Macedonian army had snuck past our border patrols and camping within our lands. Not willing to advance on a fortified position with an exhausted army, he chose to replenish his army at Philippopolis. This was fine, we simply waited for our two fleets in the Aegean to resupply for their expedition into the Adriatic, where both Macedonian and Roman ports alike could be found. So according to our new war strategy, the Adriatic was in principle a gold mine of utmost importance. Our Carthaginian allies were also helping in that regard, securing Corsica for themselves and now selling for Sicily, I think. They never actually made it there due to this Roman fleet here. Luckily for us, the Romans were mostly occupied with the Egyptians and the rest of the Anatolian trade league in the east, which was why we weren't completely wiped out of the map already. Hence Zenobius, who by now had dealt with the secessionist armies, once again was allowed to march for the Roman ports in northern Africa. Although most of our fleets in the west were low on crew and ships, they still possessed immense value to our cause. Cleisthenes, for example, routed the entire Iceni fleet without breaking a sweat. Their inferior ships didn't stand a chance against our Heptarese warships, meaning we now had clear passage to deal with the Iceni strongholds in Gallia. Same could be said for the Massalians, whose armies foolishly sailed to invade Corsica and unexpectedly got caught by our fleet. And with that victory, our fleet sailed for the Pillars of Hercules, from where they would drain our entire economy basically, to regain their true strength, so we in the near future could challenge the city of Massalia itself. As a result of the previous civil war, we mustered a second Hellenic dominant army at our capital. Although it wasn't at full strength, the current situation in Thrace encouraged us to go on the offensive. The Adriatic was our next target, of course. We even hired mercenaries to bolster our numbers, because this army wasn't expected to return home for quite a while. The Macedonian army within our lands, on the other hand, continued its push, marching into Apollonia Pontica without opposition. This was bad in the sense that Glaucus neither could counterattack nor actually reach Odysseus in case of another attack. Nevertheless, he marched out, hoping to strike within short time. Luckily for the following winter, that was the exact moment where we for the second time assaulted this rather neglectable port. This time we were way more organized in our attack, with our hoplites splitting up into 3 teams of 2 in the middle to distract the Macedonians, while our Corinthians on the left along with the cavalry hoped to win the battle on that side. Or perhaps even that was an option over on the right, where our Thracian falksmen charged into combat. But as predicted, their barbarian ways prevailed over our tactics, with them rushing into combat like headless chickens. Let's just say they didn't really get that far. So this assault basically relied on the left engagement, so we invested additional skirmishers towards the struggle, which made a huge difference, paving the way for our cavalry to charge in. Our combination of Greek and Thracian forces fought mostly in unison to overcome this rather annoying Macedonian threat, leading to us winning a close victory. But a battle that wasn't at all close was the conquest of Apollonia. Here our armies eased its way into the port, accompanied by our 2 fleets that at last were ready to cause some havoc. And havoc they caused. By the winter of 239, the Athenian invasion of Italy began. The city of Taras was the perfect place to launch our invasion from. Not only did this settlement have high walls, making it incredibly hard to get rid of us, but also this settlement was just far enough away from Rome to cause turmoil in the Senate. All we had to do was just take it. The assault began with our siege ships disrupting their defensive emplacements, such as this ballista or that tower. With the harbor cleared, we cruised in with our archers to soften up the garrison. Additionally, our second fleet blasted a hole in their walls for us to circumvent the dangerous choke point the port represented. This meant our superior marines easily could grind through the Roman garrison supported by our ballistic ships, so we could flood the streets and even surround the units contesting the port itself. We actually ended up raising the city, signaling our arrival at the Italian shores. Of course, we rather quickly began rebuilding the city in our own image. From here on out, the plan was to bring over this army to garrison this beachhead, while our fleet dealt with the other coastal settlements. All the way up in northern Gallia, we had also launched a more coordinated attack at the last major Iceni stronghold, but after a rather short siege, they sallied out. Although their units were more skilled than us, our tactics proved to be the deciding factor, as we simply overwhelmed the first army and sent forth a minor regiment to cut off their reinforcements. This allowed us to take out 1 army at a time, and soon thereafter the rest of northern Gallia. This left the Iceni with just a couple of minor villages for us to deal with. But luckily for us, in a rather unexpected turn of events, the Germanic people surrendered their sovereignty, freeing up the army that otherwise was battling it out with the Germans. This new addition to our larger corps was thus tasked to march south through Germania to help deal with the last Iceni forces, to then possibly link up with the rest and march on Massalia itself. Our spies in northern Africa described how the Romans weren't appreciative of our invasion. Armies were on the move, heading straight back to Magna Graecia. Some even for Corrales. Nevertheless, we fortified our position in Italy and set sail to deal with both the Roman transports and also the Macedonian occupations in Illyria. Epidamnos was rather easy to overcome, with us losing no more than 300 men. At the same time, our Greek city-state vassals were on the move, establishing a massive siege around Pella, a bold but welcoming move which allowed Glaucus to march for Dacia once again. Heck, even the Bithynians were on the move, sailing along the Danube trying to help in our struggle. That and the rather sickly armies we could see the Macedonians had left persuaded me to believe the Carthaginians actually didn't need our support anymore. So instead, Glaucus deviated towards the Boy, and if he had enough time, support the assault on Pella too. The weak state of the Macedonian armies were further admitted as the Macedonians called in a favor among the Illyrian pirates who declared war. A grave mistake from their side, as they clearly hadn't heard what happened to the Etani. As a result, we looted that town and took it for our own. As it didn't have any armies defending that port, I somewhat expected a counterattack, but later found out they were in fact failing to raid some random town beyond the Alps. This conquest also increased our imperium level once again, which we quickly took advantage of by enlisting governors in our most rebellious provinces. Furthermore, due to our high education system established in Athens, all our new governors had become capable administrators with a keen eye for empire maintenance before even getting any hands-on experience. Our many victories along our many frontiers made me consider a preemptive attack at Cosentia, but the last second called off the attack in favor of waiting for Glaucus to arrive first. He was well on his way too, as he rather easily dealt with the Macedonian town along with an army that tried to reach Pella to break the siege. I mean, they weren't needed down there anyway, as the walls of Pella withstood our allies, at the cost of major losses though, allowing Glaucus to swoop in and secure it in the name of Athena. It was just a matter of time now before he arrived in Italy. Our plan to seize the ports of our enemies was clearly paying off, with both the Macedonians and the Titani as well as the Iceni rapidly crumbling before our otherwise mediocre armies. Now was the time to test our strategy against Rome. Zenobius razed Iole to the ground for the second time. The Romans quickly counterattacked in a rather dangerous manner, but I forgot to save the battle, so all I basically can say is thank you to our elephants for basically carrying our defense. But now it was our turn to attack. One of our fleets single-handedly carried out 2 assaults on 2 separate Roman ports during the same turn, sacking both. The only reason we didn't occupy these lands was due to this specific legion in Rome that was able to counterattack any port our fleet stayed in, forcing us to, as mentioned, leave after our attacks. This was just the early stage of our invasion of Italy. Massalia, however, was about to get the full treatment. But our joy was somewhat overshadowed by the rather unexpected fall of the Getaean nation, along with the wife of our faction leader. Our selfish move in taking Pella for our own left the Dacians to die in the dark. We had failed them.